1923, the Irish Civil War is coming to an end. Spring arrives on the island of Inisherin. Patrick Suliwan comes to his best friend and drinking companion, Colm Doherty, to invite him to the pub. But Colm simply ignores him, as if Patrick does not exist at all. The man goes to the pub alone, not understanding what is happening. However, at the very last moment Patrick changes his mind and goes back home. His sister Siobhan immediately senses that something is wrong, because this is not like Patrick at all. He tells her that he knocked on Colm's door, but Colm just sat there doing nothing. Patrick does go to the pub after all. John Joe Devine, the bartender, remarks how strange it is that Colm is not with Patrick. Usually they always drink together. The man explains that he knocked on Colm's door, but no one opened. John Joe concludes that the guys must have argued, even though that is not true at all. Tormented by anxiety, Patrick decides to go see Colm once more to clear everything up. On the way he meets Officer Pater Carney, who does not even greet him. Music is playing loudly in Colm's house, his favorite record. The door is open, so Patrick goes inside, continuing to call out to his friend. There is no response at all. Suddenly he sees Colm through the window walking somewhere, and follows him. Patrick approaches his friend and tries to start a conversation, but Colm is adamant about not sitting next to him. It really does look as if they have had a falling out, although Patrick has no idea what it could be about. He tries to find out from Colm what the problem is. If Patrick said something stupid or did something while drunk, he is ready to apologize right now. Colm says that this is not the point, he simply does not like Patrick anymore, even if just yesterday he did. Completely bewildered, the man leaves and on the way runs into Dominic Carney, the officer's son. The boy can tell that Patrick is upset. Siobhan notices it too. The man is beside himself, and he does not care at all about what is going on around him. That evening Mrs. McCormick, the oldest resident of the island, comes to visit them. Rumors are already spreading around the village that Patrick and Colm are no longer best friends, no matter how much Patrick tries to deny it. To exchange the latest gossip with Mrs. McCormick without prying ears, Siobhan sends her brother off to the pub, where he usually spends his evenings. This time he goes very reluctantly. In the distance, the rumble of explosions can be heard, the artillery fire on the mainland. Colm is playing the fiddle in the pub, clearly not suffering from the end of his friendship with Patrick, surrounded by enthusiastic patrons. He seems to be popular, especially with women. Patrick and Dominic sit at a table off to the side, like hermits. It hurts the man to think that his best friend no longer wants anything to do with him. The question is, why? Dominic and Patrick leave the pub and drink together, talking heart to heart. Dominic, who often suffers abuse from his despotic father, has long been in love with Siobhan and tries to find out from Patrick how to approach her, but the man is in no state to think about that. Patrick wonders what could have suddenly happened to Colm. They were best friends and went to the pub together every day. Maybe Colm has received some bad news. Dominic objects, saying that Colm is doing just fine. On the contrary, it is as if a heavy burden has been lifted from his shoulders. Later, glancing at the calendar, Patrick begins to think that all of this is just an April Fool's joke, which he tells Colm about, but he in turn remains cold. Smiling, Patrick says that he will come by to pick him up at 2 today, and they will go to the pub together as usual. Before this meeting, the man is very nervous, doing his best to convince himself that everything is fine, that it really was just a cruel prank. But Colm goes to the pub again without waiting for his friend. Patrick does not give up his attempts to repair his relationship with his former friend. Colm states that he no longer intends to waste his precious time on such nonsense as friendship with Patrick, and will instead write music, read books and think about the meaning of life. The more aimlessly they chat, the shorter Colm's life becomes, and that means there is less and less time left for something truly worthwhile, for example creativity. It is so frightening to die without having achieved anything. Seeing how depressed and broken her brother is, Siobhan directly asks Colm what suddenly happened between him and Patrick. The man says that Patrick is too boring. It has always been that way, so Siobhan wonders what has changed. Colm says that he has changed. There is no more room for boredom in his life. He lives on the coast of Ireland, where there are no opportunities at all, but all he hopes for is peace of mind. Patrick thinks that Colm is simply depressed. But even if that is the case, Colm could have kept it to himself, like everyone else. Patrick develops paranoia about people gossiping behind his back, thinking him stupid, even though Siobhan denies it. In this situation it is not Patrick who is to blame, but Colm. The next morning on their way to church, brother and sister see Dominic beaten up. As always, it is the work of his father. He asks to stay with them for one night. Patrick understands that this is Dominic's way of trying to get closer to Siobhan, but the man has no reason to refuse. After the church service, Patrick approaches the priest and whispers something to him. Colm goes to confession, something he has not done in 8 weeks. The priest reproaches him for no longer speaking to Patrick. It is not a sin, but it is not good either. The priest begins to suspect that Colum harbors impure thoughts about Patrick, and that this is why he so diligently avoids his former friend. The man cannot believe that the priest is saying this seriously. Losing patience, Colum approaches Patrick, and in front of the other pub patrons, declares that if Patrick does not leave him alone, Colum will cut off one of his own fingers every single time. From this moment on, if Patrick says even one more word to him, this shocks everyone. Other men begin to mock Patrick, saying that he was not created to think, unlike Colum, who is no stranger to lofty matters. This is the worst thing Patrick has ever heard. Toward evening, a storm begins. At dinner, Dominic tries to cheer up brother and sister, saying that Colum is just an ordinary fat red-haired man, and that he was clearly bluffing when he talked about his fingers. Dominic suggests testing it empirically. Then the young man turns his attention to Siobhan, asking why she is still unmarried, which infuriates the woman. It seems that Dominic's attempt at courtship has failed. The next morning Patrick drives milk to the market, to the other side of the island. Mrs. O'Riordan asks him about the latest gossip, but he is not aware of anything. However, as soon as Pater Carney appears, Patrick states that Dominic, the officer's son, suffers regular beatings at the hands of his father. Enraged, Carney waits until Patrick goes outside and beats him, threatening that if Dominic is not home for dinner tonight, Siobhan may suffer. Colum, who witnesses this, helps his former friend climb onto his cart out of pity and takes him home. On the way, they are both silent. At some point Patrick starts to cry, and Colum leaves him alone. From now on, the man devotes all his time to playing the fiddle, contemplating nature and philosophical thoughts, while Patrick drives himself deeper and deeper into melancholy, feeling pathetic. But despite everything he still tries to keep himself together and goes to the pub. There, Colum and Pater are talking. Carney plans to go to the mainland soon to watch an execution in person. This could become the subject of a new composition by Colum. The pub is especially lively today because students from a music school have arrived. Seeing how cheerfully Colum and Pater are talking, Patrick, already quite drunk, feels unbearable jealousy and approaches them. He no longer intends to endure humiliation directed at him and is ready to say everything he thinks. Meanwhile, Dominic runs to get Siobhan so that she will come and intervene before her brother does something foolish. The music falls silent. Patrick declares in front of all the patrons that Colum used to be good, but now he is not. Trying to remain calm and polite, Colum says that all good things come to an end sooner or later, but some things live forever, for example poetry or music. No one remembers people from the 17th century for their kindness, but people remember great composers and artists. Colum is horrified by the thought that in 50 years no one will remember him. Siobhan leads her brother away, promising Colum that Patrick will not approach him again. The man realizes that he will not get his former friendship back, no matter how much effort he makes. Nothing can be the same anymore. Siobhan receives a letter with a job offer on the mainland. The woman understands that if she abandons her brother, he will finally break. Patrick approaches Colum to apologize for his drunken words from the previous day. Colum does not understand why his former friend simply cannot leave him alone once and for all. The feeling of his own uselessness presses on Patrick more and more. Only his sister supports him, not yet mentioning the job offer. Colum does carry out his horrific promise about the finger. It seems that he has already despaired of explaining to his former friend the full seriousness of his intentions. When Siobhan sees this, she screams in horror. Thus Patrick is convinced that Colum was not joking. Finally left alone with himself, the man plays the fiddle. Siobhan thinks that her brother should cut off all contact with Colum, because what is happening is madness. This cannot continue. And the woman goes to Colum to return the finger to him. He only wants there to be no boring people in his life. Siobhan shouts that all the men on this island are boring, with their petty grievances. And she is ready to do anything so that her brother will no longer speak to Colum. The man states that he would only be glad. From now on, every time he passes Patrick, Colum does not even greet him. Day after day passes like this. The man watches as his former friend talks to Declan, a musician from the mainland. Apparently he finds him not boring. Out of jealousy, Patrick decides to resort to cunning and lies to Declan, saying that he has received a telegram from the mainland. Supposedly his father was hit by a bread van and is dying alone. Of course Declan leaves for the mainland without hesitation. Thus Patrick gets rid of one of the competitors for Colum's friendship. Siobhan considers accepting the job offer. She is tired of the hopeless life on the island. At dusk, Patrick runs into Mrs. McCormick, who foretells that death will soon come to Inisherin. He does not take the words of the strange elderly woman seriously. No one on this island does. At night, Siobhan weeps bitterly, waking her brother. When he asks what happened, she does not say it is nothing. For some time now, Dominic has been the only one of the men who still talks to Patrick. The guy mentions that that night in the pub Patrick really did impress Colum. Perhaps he should stop being such a whiny fool. Maybe that is exactly what Colum is waiting for. Patrick objects, saying that he cannot be such a whiny fool if he managed by deception to send Colum's new friend off the island. Dominic's expression changes sharply as he says that this is bad. He used to think that Patrick was better than the other men on the island, but it turns out he is the same. Dominic leaves, leaving Patrick in complete solitude. Siobhan has already made her decision, although she has not told anyone yet. Dominic makes another attempt to win Siobhan's favor, but she rejects his courtship, since he is just a boy. Patrick brazenly barges into Colum's house and calls him fat. But he quickly drops this posture, giving in to his habitual soft-heartedness. Colum says that he has finished his composition, which he has titled The Banshees of Inisherin. Patrick expresses sincere happiness for him. Colum is saddened by the thought that no one will play this melody at his funeral. Patrick suggests that he and Colum meet at the pub and celebrate the composition. To his surprise, Colum says that it is a good idea. Instantly brightening, the man sets off first to the pub to order drinks. Before leaving, he mentions what he did to Declan. Patrick would like to apologize to him. This pushes Colum to take extreme measures, while Patrick, as if nothing were wrong, waits for him in the pub. But instead of Colum, Siobhan appears and tells her brother about her plans to leave the island, forever. Nothing good awaits her here. Meanwhile, Colum throws the remaining 4 fingers of his left hand at the door of Patrick and Siobhan's house. On his way back, he runs into them. Horror and shock are written on their faces. Siobhan can no longer endure this madness, so she prepares to leave immediately. Patrick begs his sister to stay, but she knows that this is her only chance at a better life. The man watches as Siobhan walks away with her luggage. A life on the mainland awaits her. Patrick waves goodbye from the cliff. The situation worsens when Patrick's beloved donkey chokes on one of Colum's fingers and dies. Now he has absolutely no one left here. The man buries the animal. Then, feeling that he has nothing left to lose, he heads once more to his former friend's house. On the way, Patrick runs into Mrs. McCormick, but he no longer wishes to listen to her ramblings. Colum is not home, and the man enters without obstruction. He could do something to Colum's dog out of spite, but he does not want to, because the animal is not to blame for anything. Full of resolve, Patrick goes to the pub. Colum offers him an agreement. From this moment on, they go their separate ways forever, but his former friend says that he does not agree. This is only the beginning of the war. Patrick declares that tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon he will burn down Colum's house and advises him to make sure the dog is not inside. Or Colum can try to stop him. The next morning after the church service, he goes to confession again and bitterly says that he killed a small donkey. It was an accident, but Colum feels bad about it. The priest only indifferently says that God does not care about small donkeys, but the fact that Colum harms himself, that is definitely a sin. In any case, the man does not intend to do anything about it. Siobhan writes her brother a letter, saying that she has settled in well and that things are much better there. She would like Patrick to move in with her. Because there is nothing for him on Inisherin except resentment and bitterness. The war is almost over, so Patrick could find work. Dominic would stay in their house and look after the farm. Later it might be too late. However, all that makes sense to Patrick now is revenge on Colum. Making sure that the dog stays outside, he sets fire to his former best friend's house. Colum, who is inside, does not try to stop him. Patrick drives away in his cart, taking Colum's dog with him. Later, he replies to his sister's letter, thanking her for her kindness and the offer to move. But the man intends to stay because his entire life is closely tied to Inisherin. That morning Dominic's body is found in the lake. It appears that he slipped and fell. So even if Patrick had agreed to move away, there would have been no one left to look after the household. Colum's house burns to the ground. The 2 former friends meet on the shore. Colum believes that considering the burned house, they are even. But Patrick does not think so, since Colum managed to get out. Before Patrick leaves, Colum asks him if it comes to that, to look after the dog. The men do not know that Mrs. McCormick is watching them from the charred remains of Colum's house. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel not to miss more exciting new products. Also, the authors will be pleased if you leave your opinion in the comments.